Hey girl,
Hi.
I'm glad we got that to work. Sorry for everyone that might have been waiting. We got it
No.
figured out.
Quarantine technology issues. This is the new norm.
Yes, we all really are doing this live, y'all, and that's what comes with it. For those of you just tuning in, welcome to Lighten the Load Live. If you don't know, Lighten the Load is this new campaign from JanSport. It's all about connecting young people with real and relevant tools to address the mental health crisis. And part of that is these live sessions we've been doing every week. This is the fourth one we've done. If you haven't seen the ones from the other week, go check them out on JanSport's IGTV. But basically, what we do is we invite therapists, real therapists, to come talk to us, answer some of our lingering questions that we have that have kind of been bothering us all during quarantine. And they give us some of their expertise. And then we invite a couple people that aren't therapists to give us their perspective and to unpack everything we learned. So today we're talking to Nedra. Nedra, do you want to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about who you are.
Yes, I am Nedra Tawwab. I'm a licensed therapist in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I've been practicing therapy for 13 years.
Oh, wow.
Mhm.
She really knows her stuff, guys. If you find her on Instagram, she has great postings. We were so inspired by everything you're doing on the platform, and we're so thankful to have you joining. Today, we are talking about boundaries and family. This is one that I have been wanting to talk about all month. I know it's something we are all going through. We're all in quarantine, stay at home order with different people. Sometimes it's family, sometimes it's friends, sometimes it's strangers, sometimes we're alone. But there is a lot to unpack here. So are you ready to just dive in here? We're ready to go?
Please. Yes,
I'm going to
yes.
adjust this a little more because it's still bothering me. Again, live technical issues. It's happening right in front of your eyes, guys. The first question that is just start with the basics here. How can we get along with each other when we're stuck at home together? Why is it so hard to cohabitate for this long with people?
We get honest. I mean, we get annoyed with people, particularly our family. Like, we can deal with them in small doses. So if you're used to maybe being at school all day and then seeing your parents, or you're used to working all day and then seeing your roommates, it's one thing. But now we are with them 24/7. Sometimes we're still doing school, we're working, and it's just a lot. And so we're more irritable. Those things that we used to think were really small, like maybe smacking really loud when you're eating or something, we hear it all the time now. So it's level 10 annoyance. And the best thing to do for that is to make some adjustments so you're not having so much time together. So still finding time and space to be by yourself and to go and be with your family or your roommates after you've had some time with yourself. But it's really hard to be with people all day, all night, and not have some sort of outlet. So if you take some time away, maybe check in with your friends who don't live in the home with you, that could be really helpful to break up some of that energy in your house.
Yeah, I feel like we talked about this a little bit when we first talked. It's hard when you care about people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you don't want to talk about that person like it's another thing on your plate, but it kind of is. It's another kind of life skill we have to learn how to cohabitate. What are some skills you think we should focus on either learning or getting better at when we are stuck at home with people? Or I feel bad saying stuck at home. Even I feel bad already talking about it, but you know what I mean. What are some communication skills you think we could focus on during this time?
Using your words and telling people, I need some time to myself, I'm going to go to my room. I need some time to myself, I'm going to go for a walk, and I want to walk alone. So you're not making it a situation where it's like, yay, family walk. It's like, no, solo walk, solo walk. You want them to know that you need time for yourself, and make it a daily thing, whether it's I'm going to go sit on the patio and chat with my friends, or I'm going for a walk, whatever it is, making an announcement and labeling as alone time, so it doesn't turn into a family thing. Because I think if you say, hey, I'm going for a walk, that's so open-ended that people may feel like, hey, I want to walk too. And really your
Yeah.
intention was to have some solo time. So it's so important to make sure that you're communicating that this is something just for you. And you may be the person in your house that's more introverted, and so you can tolerate more alone time, and you should be able to have that. And I know that with our families and, some roommates, we are very concerned about how they might feel about us needing some time to ourselves, but it's normal to sort of take some time to recharge. And as I said, if you're an introvert, you might need even more time to recharge. So get comfortable with asking for more time apart from your family, because if you do not, you will be burnt out, annoyed, frustrated, and eventually you may explode on someone.
Yes, that is so true. One and two, like I love the idea of just even if it's something small, like taking a walk by yourself, like being purposeful about that. Uh, are there any other things that like maybe thought starters on what we can do to kind of like make cohabitating more enjoyable, whether it's things you can do like alone to get space or things we can do together to make it easier for each other? Is there anything you would recommend or comes to the top of your head?
Yeah, I would say get creative. I think most of us are now over game nights and we've played all of the games that we can think of, but there are so many other things we could do, like puzzles. I think, like a 5,000 piece puzzle is like super challenging, or candle making, or karaoke night, or dance party. There are dance parties. There are so many things that we can start to get into with each other outside of the typical, let's find a movie to watch, let's find a series, or let's play some games. What can we do that we haven't done already? I think, like a Pinterest or those sorts of things that's a wonderful resource. Or even talk to your friends about what are some of the things they're doing in their homes to kind of keep things fresh and exciting.
Yeah, I feel like I've talked to a lot of people that have like run out of Netflix to watch together. Like they're done. They reached the end of Netflix and they're
I
like,
have
I don't know what
started
to do now.
Yeah, I've started watching Grey's Anatomy because I realize it's 24 episodes per season. And unless we're in quarantine for like 2 years, I will never finish it. So it'll be one of those things that,
Yeah, but you were
I
strategic about it there.
yeah, find something, watch Law and Order. It's like 1,000 episodes. You'll never run out of that. So,
Exactly.
you
Or the
have to.
5,000 piece puzzle, you're like, the bigger the challenge, the better here is what you're
Yes,
saying.
yes. The thing that takes the most time. Please don't do the 100-piece puzzle. You will be done and on to what do we do next?
Yes, exactly. I love all of those suggestions. Okay, here's another really good, really important question. How can I establish boundaries at home? Now, I think a lot of people talk about boundaries all the time. I see it all over social media, but could you explain to me like what boundaries, what does that really mean? Like in your perspective, and why is it so important, especially now?
Boundaries are so many things, but I will tell you the three things that it is mostly. It's saying yes, it's when to say no, and it's advocating for your needs. How do we do that at home? You exercise the power of yes, you exercise the power of no, you exercise the power of this is what I need or this is what I want. For instance, taking that time for yourself to recharge away from other people. That may be something that you need to function and be comfortable in your home. That would be a boundary. You telling someone, hey, I don't want you to go on a walk with me. That is a boundary. Do you want to watch another episode of blah, blah, blah with me? No, that is also a boundary. So advocating for yourself, those are boundaries.
Yeah, and we discuss a little bit like how it can kind of be hard or it can make you nervous almost, especially when you're dealing with people that you really care about.
Mhm.
How would you suggest people like start that conversation with whoever they're living with? Like, maybe I've never talked about these kind of things with my family or roommate before. How can
Mhm.
I just open that door and feel confident about what I'm about to say to them?
Remember your frustration and irritation level. Like, keep that at the front of your mind, because if you don't do this, you will be so annoyed and you will continue to be annoyed. And you can literally stop it just by setting the boundary,
Yeah,
just by
yeah.
doing the thing that you think is so hard and overwhelming. It frees you up so much to just be a little more comfortable in your interactions with people. And I think the biggest thing that gets in the way of us setting boundaries is wondering how other people might perceive the boundary. We're
Mm-hmm.
thinking about how they'll feel, what they'll do, how it'll make things awkward. And those are all just thoughts in our head. I can think of thousands of boundaries that people have set with me, and I've just said, okay, today I went to a nail salon and I had to walk in and wash my hands first and wear a mask. I didn't say, oh my gosh, I can't. I did it
Yeah.
because I wanted, I wanted the interaction with this person.
Yeah.
Now,
You
there
wanted to
may
get
be,
those nails done, girl.
yes, yes. So there may be some people who say, I really don't like your boundary. I'd rather do this. And that's an option as well. But we cannot predict how people will respond to our boundaries. And if we wanted to sit and think about it, think about the best case scenario. Them
Mhm.
actually hearing us and saying, okay, or yes, I can do that for you.
Yeah, it's so funny because I feel like personally, when people come to me with this stuff, I'm like, of course you do you. Like, it's all good. And then when I think about doing it with other people, I start to get a little nervous.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I feel like that's all kind of like natural. It just gets to the point where you like exactly what you said. You have to advocate for yourself. What would you say if, okay, maybe the conversation didn't go as well as you thought it would, or you didn't really feel heard when you were talking about your boundaries, or maybe your boundaries were respected for a while, but then you kind of get into old patterns where suddenly they're not anymore. How should we handle that with our roommate or family member or something that isn't quite getting it?
Restate your boundaries. So if you set a boundary 2 weeks ago and now you see the person starting to backslide a bit, it's important to go back to what you said. I think parents do it all the time with kids, where they'll say, I told you no snacks in your room, and they say that like 5,000 times. They're going back to their boundary over and over. Get your clothes off the floor, get your clothes, you have to go back to it. You don't give up on it and say, hey, I'll just let them eat snacks all in their room. No, you go back to the boundary and you say, this is what I would like from you. Because the truth is, people don't remember to do things they don't want to do. So
Yeah, it's
if
hard.
if I don't want to respect your boundary, it's not like I'm thinking like, what are all the boundaries that this guy has? It's just like I'm doing my natural thing, which might be, very opposite of what you want.
Yeah.
So you may need to help me remember what you needed or what you wanted. And so it's never a bad idea to just restate the boundary. If you find that maybe the boundary was working for a little bit but you didn't quite get what you needed in the situation, you can refresh the boundary and just tweak it a little bit, change it a little bit to fit what you're needing right now. I know I said you could walk with me one day a week, but actually,
Mhm.
I don't like work.
It's not
I don't
working.
like working out with you, but I wonder if we could just
Yeah.
work out separately. That will work better for me because I'm able to focus a bit more.
Yeah, I love the way you're explaining it. Like you can still be patient and compassionate with people, but also be firm in what you need. I feel like that's a really like interesting way to look at it. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't have to be a bad thing. It doesn't have to be like a mean thing. It can still be
Hmm.
like very compassionate. Speaking of maybe things getting tense, how can we avoid bickering? There are so many people I've talked to. We've seen it online. We've seen it as we've been talking to people during this project. And they're like, yo, I love my family. I love my roommate. but sometimes we get in this like argument mode that is not necessarily logical. Like, how do we get there and how do we make it stop?
Give up on the idea that you can convince people to change. I think a lot of arguments come from our belief that we can persuade people to think like us, or that what we're saying is the only way to do something, or we're absolutely right about it. And the other person is thinking the exact same thing as you. And that's basically what an argument is. It's like
it's just like two people that know they're right.
There are two people that know they're right and nobody's giving in, right?
Yeah.
And I happen to believe that most people think that what they believe is true. So if I'm talking to you and I'm saying, no, this is how you unload the dishwasher, you say, no, this is how you do it, I think we're both right. Is it a big enough deal for me to really dig into it? Like, do I want to go all the way in this situation? Pick your battles. There are some things where it's like, no, this is really a hot button issue, but everything is not. So pick 5 things, really, advocate for yourself in those situations and let the rest go. We don't always have to have things our way or, that sort of thing, especially when you're in close quarters with people and you're sharing your time and resources and these sorts of things. You cannot be the remote control captain all of quarantine, right? Like, you have to.
Someone's got to give.
Someone has to give. You have to share something, and you can have a very good reason for why you should be able to do something. But sometimes just recognize, is this worth the energy? Is this a thing that's a really big deal to me, or do I just want to be heard? And sometimes we just want to be heard, and so we'll keep saying the same thing over and over different ways, but people don't always hear us, and that's a really hard thing to accept, that they don't hear me, and I can say it 5 different ways and they still won't hear me. And once you recognize that someone can't hear you, walk away.
Yeah, sometimes you just have to, no matter how good of an argument you make, sometimes that it is kind of not worth the energy. So what if sometimes things escalate before you realize what's happening. You're in an argument, or someone is trying to engage in an argument with you. Again, especially it happens when we're all at home together 24/7. How could I de-escalate that? Like, what could I say to my parent and be like, I don't think we need to go down this road?
I don't think we need to go down this road is a good one. My all-time favorite is okay. I hear you. I understand. I get where you're going. I think there are statements you could say that don't dig deeper. You're not asking more questions. And let's face it, we don't always have to agree with people to do the thing that they're requesting.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
We can completely disagree and, still do it. I mean, there are tons of things that we disagree with that we still do, again, because we want to keep the peace or engage in this relationship dynamic with someone. And I think just avoiding a big dispute or de-escalating is just another level of that. Just saying, I really don't want to argue today. So, okay, I understand what you're saying. I get it.
Yeah, I mean, totally tracking with all of that. Last follow-up question on this one. What can I do if other people in my home are arguing? I've heard a lot of stories about, I have 2 roommates and they're going at it with each other. I have, my parent and brother, or, sometimes you're not really in it, but you need it to stop. So how do you approach that situation?
Call a household meeting. I think that bringing something to someone's attention could be really helpful, and not in the moment of it happening, right? Because they're not in the space to hear you. But after you notice a pattern of, okay, they argue every single day. Let's sit down and talk about some ways, some healthy ways to get through disputes. Let's talk about some of the common disputes that you all are having so we can come up with a plan, and that could be our go-to solution versus having this same argument over and over and over. I am a mom, and at first I was letting my kids use my old tablet, and they would argue over it. So my solution was, two tablets, right? So now everyone's happy. We don't argue about that anymore because there is now a solution. Instead of saying, stop arguing over the tablet, stop arguing over it, we need a solution. So what could the solution be to minimize the arguments?
Yeah, and especially if it's like a solution where everyone kind of feels like their needs were met or addressed, or, you know, at least we all compromise type of thing. Like you can't get there unless you're all talking about it.
Absolutely.
Okay, here's another question we wanted to ask you. How can I handle lifestyle differences at home? So I know we have talked to some people even on these live sessions that are like, oh, I had to leave my college dorm or apartment, or, you know, a place where I felt I had a lot of independence, and suddenly go back to, you know, living with parents or other family members, and suddenly maybe I can't be as independent as I used to be, or maybe my family doesn't understand the things I'm doing. You know, they're like, why are you spending, I don't know, 10 hours a day on TikTok? And I'm like, I can't explain it to you. That's a small example, but you know, there are probably 50, you know, different shades of what this could look like.
Yeah, so I think that in the example of TikTok, I think that's a cultural difference. You have some people who spend 10 hours watching TV, but they wouldn't spend 10 hours on TikTok. And I don't know if you need to explain that to them, that this is the thing we do now. However, I think you have to be comfortable with your differences and advocating for those things, that, you know, it's nothing wrong with being on TikTok for 10 hours if that's your regular routine, as long as you're able to function in the home, you know, and do what you're supposed to do. But how you spend your time is how you spend your time. That's your personal time. And that again goes to setting boundaries with how you spend your time. I think that just because someone says something to you, like, why are you doing that? They are basically saying that's not something I would do. And that's okay. They don't have to maybe talk to their friends on FaceTime, or, you know, use a certain amount of time on TikTok. They don't have to do that. But if that's what you choose to do, then that's okay, as long as it's not interfering with anything. But in terms of the lifestyle differences, yeah, it's really tough to live in a home with someone who is so different than you. But I think creating your own space, if you have a bedroom that you could go to and maybe create a safe haven there, or a patio, outdoors, the basement, some space that you can have for yourself. And if there is no space, I would say, again, talk to the people in your house about the division of, okay, so I need this. Can you do this for me to have this? So I need to watch TV quietly and your music is really loud from 5 to 7. Can I watch TV and you don't play any music? So come up with some compromises so it's not constantly bickering and a war of differences.
Yeah, I love that. It's like, you know, maybe it's kind of almost what you said earlier about like picking your battles, or maybe like knowing when you're not going to reach that perfect world where you get everything you want. But just acknowledging that, like, okay, you don't want to maybe participate in this with me. Can we at least carve out some time or a space for me to do it on my own terms? I think that's like really interesting. I know there are a lot of people probably at home right now, like my parents just are not getting it. And maybe their parents think the same thing about them. But yeah, I feel like you might have addressed all my follow-up questions on that one. Just like, I know, again, sometimes these could be really small things, like, you know, I like spending my time on this app, or on, you know, doing this or creating this way. But then sometimes it can be like a little more serious issues, maybe like identity, or your parents don't understand like your activism that you're doing. how, when it gets to like trickier things like that, do you have any like specific advice for those scenarios?
It sounds like in those scenarios, your parents are getting to know a new part of who you are. And so perhaps this is the time to explain and introduce them to this TikTok version of you or this activist version of you. They may not know you as that. If you're home from college and the last thing that they remember you doing is playing video games and you've turned into a fashion designer, yes, that is very different. And they maybe like, what are you doing? Like, what is
Yeah.
this? And
Yeah, I
so
mean, a
you're
lot of
having,
times,
go
oh,
ahead.
sorry, I was just going to say, a lot of times, like, you go to college and you maybe find new parts of yourself, or you move out of the
Mhm.
house and you find these new parts of yourself. Like, how do you think we should introduce our families to that if they see us as maybe this kid that they knew when we all lived together?
We have to talk to them about it and we have to inform them of what this is, why it's important to us, and how we're doing it now. And we have to set a boundary around them, creating, some space, at least mentally, that this is what we're into now, and not allowing them to go back to that maybe 16-year-old version of who we were and that sort of thing, and saying like, this is what I like to do now, and this is really important to me, or it's
Yeah.
fun to me.
Yeah, I feel like that's good advice, like quarantine or otherwise, because we're constantly evolving and growing, and sometimes
Mm-hmm.
we have to catch people up on what you're doing these days and how your life has changed and grown and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, last kind of topic we wanted to touch on here. How can I stay connected to people I can't see? So the flip side of getting, you know, thrown back into your house with all your siblings and parents and grandparents is some people are alone. Some people are having to stay at home just by themselves. So how would you suggest we like maintain our relationships with people who we can't necessarily see or physically be with? Or maybe, FaceTime isn't cutting it. How can we
Mm-hmm.
still keep those really deep connections strong?
Mm-hmm. So when FaceTime isn't cutting it, there are other things like, I've really enjoyed having some game nights on House Party. They kind of have like games built into the app.
Yeah.
Scheduling that time to talk to your friends is really important, because I think that we might be here for a while. So just saying like, I could catch up with them later, or I'll talk to them when this is over, that is not enough. We have to be conscious and very intentional about connecting with people, even when it feels uncomfortable, even when you feel like, I did the same thing yesterday. What am I going to talk about today? It's
Yeah.
like, make up something, figure out something to talk about, play a game. We have to get really creative right now. I think this time is teaching us how to stay connected to people in a very creative way.
Yeah, I love what you said earlier about like asking other people, like, hey, what are you like? We're all going through this together. No one knows how to do stay at home the best way,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because we're all new
Mm-hmm.
at this. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like, oh, what have you been doing with your family? Or how have you been like, I'm horrible at scheduling things with people. It's hard. It's weird sometimes to like put on your Google Calendar or your phone calendar, like, y'all, we need to actually have a talk and like catch up. But you gotta like find new ways and kind of new habits, I guess.
Yeah, because if we don't, we kind of forget about people, not even like intentionally. But I know for sure there's been people who just kind of like fallen through the cracks because I forgot to call them. And, a week turns into a month, and a month turns into two. And then they're out of the rotation. And you're like, oh, I haven't talked to so and so in a while. And it's just one of those things that we have to be intentional. So I would say daily, think of someone outside of your home that you can connect with.
I love that. Yeah, especially now because time seems to have lost all meaning in our brains right now. So I think that's good to like, yeah, have it set aside, be intentional, and do it like regularly. My next follow-up question, what if our family or friends or roommates are making us feel guilty for not staying at home with them? I know some people, have gotten to choose maybe, oh, do I go home or do I stay in my apartment? Or Should I go run away with friends or something? I don't know what everyone's doing out there, but then, you know, what if your family is like, hey, what about me? I want to spend this time with you. How do we have that conversation and prioritize what we actually want to do?
Well, I think people have a prerogative to ask questions, and you have the prerogative to not answer. And so if it's something that you're not comfortable giving them a real answer to, like, I don't want to be here because you chew really loud, I think you can say, you know, it's just something, you know, I don't really want to talk about. It's a choice that I made. So you can, you know, kind of use these things to not really answer the question, but to say something that, you know, I just thought it was a better choice for me type thing. Or you can really tell people that, you know, I just really feel comfortable staying with my boyfriend because that's my primary support. And that's right now during this time, that's a really important thing for me to have that emotional support.
Yeah, and that goes back to what we talked about earlier too, as far as like your parents are probably always going to love you and want you to be there with them, but or you know that might go for your significant other or your friend or anyone that loves you is going to want you nearby. But at the end of the day, you kind of have to just be honest with, or maybe not even completely honest, but you need to let them know what's going on in your head, kind of.
And you have a choice. I mean, it's your time, and you have the right to spend it in whatever way you want to. And I know that some people will feel slighted. You know, if you don't want to go to your parents' house and you want to go, you know, to your roommates, mental health wise, this is such an important time to make sure that you're taking care of your mental health. And that might not be with the people who want to be with you.
Yeah, and maybe not compromising on your own mental health the way you might do in some other time. But yeah, do you have any last tips on, you know, how to deal with this crazy world that we find ourselves in right now, where we are home most hours out of the day? Any parting thoughts?
Create some structure in your day, and it doesn't have to be, you know, at a particular time, like every day at 12 I do X, Y, and Z, but create some structure around, I talk to a friend, I work out, I spend some time with my family, I have some time to myself. Like, all of the things that you would do in the normal world, continue to figure out. I don't want to say normal world because we're not there anymore, but all of the things you did, you know, before this whole thing, continue to figure out ways to do them, even if it's in some small way. Perhaps you can't work out for an hour anymore, but maybe you could do a 20-minute workout. What ways can you stick to some of the things you were doing that kept you well?
Yeah, I love it. I love, like, because we've talked with a couple of people and guests that we've had about like scheduling things. And even in this conversation, we've talked about like scheduling time with friends or something. But I love your idea that it doesn't have to happen like on the dot of the clock, because I think a lot of times we say like, okay, I'm going to go work out at 4, and then something happens or you get distracted or 4 comes and goes and you're like, maybe not.
Yeah,
maybe tomorrow.
At some point today, I want to work out and talk to a friend. Now, if it helps you to have a time, then do a time. But, you know, it's, you know, quarantine schedule is so, like, you know, lax for some people that you could just say at some point today that could work too.
Yeah, and especially with all the unpredictability that we've all been talking about, it can be nice to not be like so hard on yourself. Like what you just said, like, oh, working out for 20 minutes instead of an hour. Maybe that's your new kind of realistic goal that you can meet. I think that's so important to like hold ourselves to something, but also give ourselves like a little bit of a break.
You know, one way I think is really cool to connect, and I have not tried this feature yet, but someone was saying that Netflix has like some feature where you can watch along with other people, like you can sync your movie to their movie. I'm also thinking about that with like video sharing. There's, you know, you can pull up a video and you and your friend watch it and, you know, kind of talk about it. So there are some really cool ways that we're able to connect. So just get creative about how to stay in touch.
Yeah, I love that. Well, you've inspired me to get creative. Now I'm like, I gotta start rethinking some stuff.
Mhm.
But overall, I feel like I could talk to you for hours, but that is all the questions we have related to this topic. So I'm gonna thank you for joining. You've been amazing. Again,
Thank you.
everyone that's watching, check her out on Instagram because she is serving up some real posts. And we love everything you're doing. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks so much. And next, we're going to have Alex join us. Thanks, Nedra. I'm going to invite Alex now.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Hey,
Hey, what's up? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah. How are you doing?
Beautiful. I'm doing awesome. Thank you so much for having me. How are you?
I'm doing great. We're doing great over here. Before I get your reactions, do you want to introduce yourself to anyone who might not know who you are that's watching?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Alex. I'm 19 years old. I live in Los Angeles, and I'm currently spending quarantine with my family, which can be a lot for me, and I'm sure for everyone watching. I'm an actor, I'm a creator, and a producer, as well as a son and a brother. So I love the theme that we had for today.
Yes, we love to hear that. Was there anything that Nedra touched on that you were like, yes, like that is clicking for me, or anything you had reactions to?
I mean, I want to say all of it, and it's really weird because a lot of the time you feel like you find yourself in a situation that's very unique to you, and that you
Yeah.
feel like you can't open up to anyone about it, and you can't talk to anyone about it because you're like, oh, no one's going through that same thing. And to hear her touch on a bunch of things that were happening to me on a daily basis, and I was like, oh, like it's happening to other people too. So, for example, honesty. When you live
Mm-hmm.
with people that you care about, and I think you were actually the one to bring that up, it's hard to say something not negative, but that might not seem positive to them, like setting a
Yeah.
boundary. And so sometimes the thing that might seem easiest to do is be like, oh, I'll just deal with it. But it's not healthy to, bottle that in and to keep it in. So people just refuse to set the boundaries. So I think her telling us that it's important to, respect and defend yourself and set those boundaries, even though it might be an uncomfortable or a new conversation that you're having with your family, is definitely something that I want to give more of a try to. Because I definitely felt what you were saying about the guilt that comes with it. Because you love those
Yes.
people and you don't want them to think they're doing something wrong. We're just all our own individual different humans that have different needs.
Yeah, when we first met Nedra, she was talking a lot about how, those scenarios we play out in our head. And she touched on it a little when she was talking. And it's just like, it's so true that, I mean, again, when people come to me and set boundaries, I'm like, cool. Like, why am I in my own head about asking other people about what I need from them?
And oftentimes, I'm sure the conversation will just flow and it'll be fine and people will understand. But the anxiety that can come from the conversation, especially if you don't have it and you bottle it in, can get so overwhelming. So that's definitely something I'm adding to my quarantine bucket list.
Yes, and I also obviously like loved what you had to say about just realizing that we're all going through this. That's been like a huge part of this project with JanSport has been all about kind of realizing that a lot of times we're going through the same stuff. Like what you said, like, oh, we're all in our heads, we're all in our heads. But then when you talk about it with someone, you realize, like, wait, so many people have experienced the same exact thing. I'm not going crazy.
Yeah, and it's weird. It's not like there's a playbook for it. You can't really
Yeah.
Google like most of my life. Through high school and everything, I've dealt with a lot of problems in my life with the help of the internet. You can just kind of Google things, and everyone's experienced stuff before, so you can find your way around it. But for a pandemic, which I wasn't even familiar with how to spell the word quarantine before 2020. So there's no playbook. There's no family you can talk to who's been through it before. It's all new to us. So it seems lonely. It seems confusing, especially at the age of 19, where you're a young adult, but you're still, a kid at the same time. And, I don't know how to cook, so my mom's cooking for me. And so I'm trying to be thankful while also setting the boundaries that I need as an adult and the privacy that I need as an adult. So it's weird, but it's nice to hear someone like Nedra to tell us that it's okay to feel that way. And even more than it's okay, it's normal, and we're not the only ones.
Yes, unfortunately, there's no tutorial on how to deal with your family during quarantine.
We'll make one. We'll make one after
Yes,
this live stream. I'm sure it'll help.
This is it, guys. Like,
Yeah,
make
this is
sure
it right
to
now. I'm glad.
to bookmark this on IGTV or something. We're figuring out in real time.
Yeah.
Was there anything Nedra said that like kind of surprised you?
Yeah, I think it was surprising to hear her talk about how different we are, because I guess what might seem like the ideal playbook to me to survive quarantine might be very different. And I think personally myself, I'm a really weird mix of an introvert and an extrovert, where I can't spend all day without talking to people and, you know, without sharing, but at the same time I get super overwhelmed when there's a lot of that. So for me personally, I think the balance that I have is, you know, coming in and out of my room, socializing, doing what I have to do, and then when I feel, you know, anxiety or when I feel like it's getting a little too much, just removing myself from that situation, but also being aware, I guess, which is not something that I do, unfortunately, but I guess I should be trying to do more often, is being aware that other people might be different. And so for me, who it seems obvious to, you know, have alone time, maybe I have a friend or a sibling or a family member that is not at all an introvert and struggles with the concept of being alone in their room. So I think also just making the effort and going out of your way to be aware of those things. And if you know that your sibling, you know, has a tough time, then make the effort, take time out of your day, even if it's slightly annoying for you or you don't want to. It'll go a really long way to even just make the effort of understanding where they're coming from. And that's definitely something that I guess you don't even think about, because you just feel like, you know, you have the one way to do it, but definitely something that surprised me.
Yeah, and I love that she was like, you don't have to come to some magic compromise. Like, I think when we think of like therapy and family, it's like, okay, everyone's going to come to a compromise and it's all going to be great. But sometimes that doesn't happen, and that's okay. And everyone has different needs, and as long as we're aware, like, I feel like we can still make it work out here.
And oftentimes I'm trying to end an argument and I'm just yelling things and I'm just saying things, and my goal with, you know, the words that I'm saying is to end it quietly and peacefully. But maybe the things that I'm saying don't necessarily correspond to that goal. Sorry. So hearing her give us literally like how to end the useless conversation or bickering by, for example, when she was talking about going, okay, like, all right, let's, you know, okay, let's end it. Like, I'll do this, you do that. Great. Is definitely helpful, because sometimes you get in that cycle of just, I'm right, the other person thinks they're right, and there's no end to it. So it's cool to know that you can just say, okay, let's agree to disagree and move forward.
Yeah, I love that. You know, things get heated when we're with our family, emotions get involved in it, and sometimes it's really hard to know when to walk away, but she had such good advice, and again, good to know that I'm not the only person.
Yeah, and I feel like we'll come out of it stronger, and if anything, that we're getting closer with our families and we're building our patience and our understanding and our tolerances of things. And like she was saying, which I thought was super interesting, was how maybe you haven't been with your family for a long time. So maybe they have a different memory of you than who you are now. Like, for example, kids that go to college and are coming back now, maybe they're into art, and there's definitely, you know, it's different, it's odd, it's not the usual, but it's okay. And even for me to know that for others is going to be useful to take in.
Yeah, I love that message that, like, at the end of the day, we are growing, getting better at relationships because of this. I think that's a great note to switch over and talk to Sierra about what she thought, if you want to stay on and watch her.
I would love to. I'm sure Sarah's going to have such better reactions. But thank you so much for having me.
No, you had great stuff. Stop.
Thank you. It was really, really interesting.
Thank you so much for joining. Stay tuned. We're going to switch over now. There she is. Hey, girl. How are you doing?
Hello. I'm good. I'm good. That was incredible. I seriously learned a lot from Nedra and Alex too. It was awesome.
I know. Everyone has such good things to say. Before we get into it, do you want to introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, so I'm Sierra Riley Wilson. I am an actress and dancer. I'm 19 years old, currently quarantining with my family as well, so I can definitely relate to everything in the conversation. And I'm also a psychology major in college right now, so it was definitely aligning with everything I'm studying, and it's really, really interesting to me, and it's an important time to be talking about mental health.
Yeah, no, everything she said was amazing. What is your like initial reaction? What is something she said that, or maybe even Alex said that you were like, yes, that is dead on for me?
Yeah, I think that this topic in particular is something that everybody feels, but no one has been talking about yet because we kind of had to like feel out the whole situation. And now, like 2 months in, we're all like, wait, this is actually something that's happening and that we really need to address so that we can, stay on top of our mental health and move forward in a healthy way. And what I think that she said that really resonated with me and something that I've been trying to incorporate into my life is creating structure and really like addressing the boundaries and saying like to my family, hey, like I'm going to be studying for 3 hours or playing guitar for 3 hours. And I put a sign on my door that says like, text me if you need anything, I'll be here and I'll come down for lunch. And so it
Yeah.
can just be a way to like be really clear about how I'm feeling. And it's not like, I don't want to see you. It's just, this is what I need to do. And it'll be really fun to hang out with you a little later kind of thing.
Yeah, I think, and it's so funny because yes, this is so important for quarantine because it's happening to so many people. But the more she started talking, the more I was like, this is useful regardless, right? Like whether you're home for
Oh, yeah.
Christmas or summer break, or maybe you put off college for a year and you're staying home, like
Yeah,
we're gonna have to
exactly.
have some compromises with who we live with.
Oh, exactly, exactly. We're all going to come out of this, like Alex said, so much stronger mentally and physically and better relationships. It's
Yes, and better
definitely a learning
roommates.
experience. Yeah, yeah.
Was
For
there,
sure.
okay, same question I asked Alex. Was there anything that like surprised you from what she said, or like that, was kind of like, oh wow, I didn't think she would approach it that way?
Yeah, I think that it was so interesting how she stressed so much that it's okay to be like, I don't want to go on this walk with you right now. And
Mm-hmm.
kind of just be straightforward with that. And that's something I've been working on in my life. And I think that, it's important to be transparent and sometimes not sugarcoat things if that's really how you're feeling. And there is definitely a way to approach it really respectfully and still make the person feel like it's not you, it's just this is what I need right now for myself. And I think that was really cool how she's like, yes, you deserve this. You should be creating these boundaries. You should be straightforward with your feelings right now and always.
Yeah, and it's so hard to do with people we care about,
Yeah,
for whatever
yeah,
reason, but like it really is hard sometimes.
yeah. And
Um,
it's cool because, now knowing all of this and knowing that there's so many other people who are feeling the way that I'm feeling, it's like, wow, people in my household are probably feeling this way too. So it something that I want to do is kind of sit down and talk about my boundaries, but be like, also, what's something that I can do for you? So it's kind of a compromise in that way where it's like, I'm setting this boundary. Is there anything that you need me to do to help you set boundaries and respect them in that way?
Yeah, I love that perspective because a lot of, we were kind of talking to Nedra about it from kind of like our perspective, right? Like, what should I do
Mm-hmm.
or what can I do to solve this problem? But now that we know these things or we're more aware, I think it's great to do what you just said, which is reach out to people and be like, it's okay if you need to tell me to, leave you alone for a minute. Like it's okay if you have boundaries. I'm here to talk through that and like get to that place where you feel good about it with you.
Yeah, definitely, for sure.
Was there any last thoughts you had that you wanted to share before we wrap up?
Um, I am just so grateful that I got to be a part of this and to hear Nedra's thoughts and Alex's thoughts. I think that you know, this is a really important time to be talking about mental health and talking about everything that we're going through, and really that communication is what's going to get us through everything, and that's what's going to get me through things right now, which is really reaching out to people and talking about our feelings.
Yes, I love that message. I love that you know, found so much in it that you could relate to. Thank you so much for joining us and
Yeah, of
sharing your
course.
perspective and being a part of this.
Thank you.
Guys, yeah, thank you. This is a wrap on the whole thing. Thanks everyone that joined, and it's going to be on IGTV if you guys want to watch or share. And you can always go to jansport.com/lightentheload for more resources and to see what other cool things Jansport's doing. So thanks, Sierra. Thanks everyone who
Thank
watched.
you.
Bye.